Bismore Park in beautiful Hyannis, right by the harbor. I'm Sarah Colvin here with artist Jackie Reeves. Tales of the Sea, this fantastic mural that is behind us, is the latest addition to Bismore Park. Jackie, thank you so much for meeting us down here and joining us today. So tell me a little bit about yourself as an artist. What has your kind of career path been as you explore yourself creatively?
I started out very young as an artist. I grew up in a family of art people. Both my parents were architects. I had a family of 7 kids. My older siblings were interested in art, and that sort of set the tone for me at a very young age. Drawing was my favorite pastime, and it was a given that I was going to go to art school because that was the only thing I was really good at. So off I went. I studied art in college and did a degree in design art, and started out my career just sort of dabbling, trying to figure out which path in the arts I wanted to take, because I couldn't decide if I was going to be an art teacher or an illustrator or a graphic designer. There's so many different directions. So I kind of dabbled for probably 5 years at the beginning of my career in my 20s, testing out the waters in all these different areas. And in the end, these things all come around full circle. So even, I would try different things. I ended up settling on mural painting once I moved here to the Cape about 20 years ago. Accidentally fell into this career path of a friend of mine asking me to help paint a mural. My friend Christopher Verdi, a longtime friend, and we had a business for 15 years painting large-scale murals in homes and businesses and community organizations, and just anywhere from Boston to Provincetown. We were all over the place doing a lot of different style murals for clients. And so that was a focus for a long time. And at the same time, I was also starting up an art center, and I still kind of was doing work with art education, teaching kids and adults. So I've had a real mishmash of different art experiences. Later in life, this is probably 5 or 6 years ago, I decided to go back to school again, and I got my master's degree in painting. Even though I had been painting all along, but I wanted to understand, I wanted to take a different path. And so now I've been on this new direction where I'm doing my own studio practice as an artist where I'm just searching out what my paintings are about for me, as opposed to working with a client. So
Sure.
There was a shift that happened for me about 6 years ago. And so that's where I'm at right now. So I practice in my studio, I make my own paintings, and have shows in museums and galleries. And
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So what is that process like? And I'm sure working for clients for many years, they would give you an idea, you'd kind of help flesh them out. What is it like for you to kind of be able to come up with your own ideas? Do you find that there's a million ideas that come out, or it's challenging to come up with that, what am I going to do next?
Yeah, it is a very different focus working for myself rather than working for a client, because there's usually, when you have a client, you'll have a parameter set, a framework that you have to work within that includes, budget and themes, and working with what the client ultimately wants in their mural, and coming to infusing your ideas. But ultimately, they own the ideas a little bit, and there's always that sort of relationship that needs to be developed. And this mural is the first time I'm doing one without sort of like a client. I mean, the town of Barnstable did commission the mural, but there was carte blanche, pretty much, do what you want. So I had to create my own framework, because when you have like all the options in the world around you, you just end up having to pick something to give you a direction.
Sure.
So I obviously responded to the environment where the mural was going to live, which is usually what I do with murals, is they're installations that are inclusive of the space around. And that's where the architecture background comes back into play for me with my architect parents. I'm used to being aware of the environment around you and how as a person you fit with the artwork that's taking up space. So,
Sure.
So I chose the space as my theme for the mural in the harbor.
And I think it really comes out, very evocative of our maritime history, of our fishing history. So tell me how you created this, because it seems like you worked in a number of different mediums, and certainly not just drawing one thing and then letting it go. How did you create Tales of the Sea?
I started out by doing some designs on a smaller scale, and layering, using a Photoshop. I would put my photographs and sketches and drawings and come up with a few different concepts, because working on a large scale like this, I was thinking of this as really just a big painting as opposed to a mural, which is pre-designed, where I would just then transfer what I had sketched. I wanted to have room for play and exploring and experimenting with the mediums. So I did decide on the main element first, of the fisherman being in the center of the mural, but then beyond that, I left the other elements a little bit fluid, so to speak, because I wanted to be able to respond to it as I paint it, because every time I've done a sketch, it never comes out exactly the way I think it's going to. I always end up having to deal with the scale shift from something so small. Once it gets big, everything changes, and so I'm like, oh, I thought that was going to look good here, but now it no longer does. So
right.
I just left room for the rest of the mural to have a place to move around, and also visually I find it more interesting to have layering and see things moving and have the viewer experience the painter's process a little more by seeing how things shift, layering and building up and editing.
Sure, and it looks like it's done on a number of different panels. Did you have everything kind of laid out in a row, or did you do each panel separately?
I did have it laid out in a row. My studio is big enough to accommodate the width of this mural, but not the height. So the only pieces that I wasn't able to really see it all together until it got installed. So the top pieces I had to, I tried laying them out on my studio floor and got a little bit of it lined up and was able to see it, but it wasn't until it went up that I really saw the full effect of the height. But I could get the length. So it was really like working on a large scale painting.
Right. Yeah. And stepping back and looking at this, I was looking at it before we started talking, and it really, you start seeing things as you're looking. You see the fishermen, and you see whales, and you see the sea, and you really kind of feel like almost you can jump inside of it, and really all of these images are almost spinning around. And so is that what you imagined when you imagined it here at Bismore Park, and people looking at it, maybe, taking a look at it and walking by, or maybe be encouraged to stop and say, I need to look at this for a little while?
Right, that's what I was hoping for. Having the impact of the big image of the fisherman, so that from a distance you get that sort of immediate graphic wow pop sort of feeling, and then I wanted there to be another layer of discovery once you get closer, that the longer you sit with it, there was like slowly revealing other things that would be seen in the mural if you give it a little bit of time. Like any, artwork that holds you a little bit longer. That's why it was important to me to have some hidden imagery, some things that you might not notice right away, and then you'll go, oh my gosh, I didn't even see that part. So then you can also, if you come back many times, you might see something a few visits later that you didn't notice on the first,